Okay, hello everyone. Hope you're doing well. I'm trying to experiment with a few different positions on my couch. So I hope you'll forgive me as I'm trying to get more comfy. Actually, let me do it on the other side of my couch. That might be better. I think this way will do much. Yeah, that looks a lot nicer. Okay. I've learned over the years that some aesthetic enjoyment is not half bad. Because I've always been the type of person that I think practicality. Oh, there, you can even see the cross in the background. I've always thought that practicality is better than beauty. So I'm starting to learn that there's some value in that. Let me get my water real quick. All right, we got that. Okay. All right, I think we're all set. If excuse me, I think I was going through puberty with a voice crack like that. But just in case you didn't see the title of this live stream, this is going to be about a lot of really great things that have been happening to me lately. Just today, I think it was this morning to be exact, I got a comment from. Let me make sure you guys can hear me okay. Okay, I think we're good here. I got a comment from the developer of Century of Anticipation. And he said that I reviewed the game so well that he thought I did a better job of advertising it than he could. And so he said that he would show this video to anyone who he thought would be interested in the game. And then he said, once he's done with his next game, he will send me a key for the game. Hello, Kevin. Thank you for being the first one here. What's going on? I mean, did you read the title of this live stream? A lot has been going on. Let me try to summarize it all in a more personal way than just a thumbnail. But first, I want to know how you're doing. So go ahead and type that out. Take as long as you want. In the meantime, I had a blast with Esabelle. I made a video all about it if you want to hear more. But we saw the Mario Galaxy movie, which, yes, I am allowing spoilers for it, so be warned. We went swimming. That was another thing. Got to catch them up on a few. By them, I mean her and her sister and her brother-in-law. Goodness knows I'm not being politically correct here. I got an email. Actually, I've gotten a few emails from developers, including a public comment on my Century of Anticipation review from the guy who made the game. And he said, Paul, I'm going to send you a key for the next game I make. I did clarify that it needed to be on Switch and Switch 2, so let's hope that he listens to that, because you'd be surprised how many people just assume that I have Steam, even though I've never reviewed a game that's not Nintendo before. So I'm wondering if I didn't been busy. Hey, better busy than terrible, right? I think there's a Bible verse that says, like, the devil's best friend is the idle man or something like that. So that's good. Good that you're keeping busy. Is there anything going on in the future that you're excited about? Like, is there a game that's been announced, a movie? I know I'm excited for the Harry Potter TV show. I deliberately only watched the first trailer, so don't say anything else. Have I ever thought about getting a PC? I have a laptop, which I think is good enough for the time being. See, there's not enough exclusives on Steam that would make me want to ditch this laptop and get a PC. Plus, I think the portability of a laptop is just way more convenient. Like, okay, hypothetically, let's say I were to get a PC that could run Steam. What would be the exclusives that I'd want? The Murder of Sonic the Hedgehog, yes, sounds cool, but not like to die for type of gameplay. I can't think of anything else. The Zero Escape remasters would be cool, but I don't think those are Steam exclusive. So at this point, it just doesn't seem viable. Might as well wait for stuff to come on the Switch. Ooh, you're going on a trip in October. I might be going on a trip in October too. Except that I'm not sure if it's October. I just know that I have two friends of mine. One is about to get married, and the other just got married on Saturday. And so once the two of them have adjusted to married life and or having kids, well, they wouldn't have kids this early because it takes 9 months to have a kid. But as soon as they are um, adjusted, then we will have something coming up. Steam Deck OLED and LCD is great. You can play some PlayStation games. Way more sale. Oh, okay. Okay, very nice. Yeah, there's not enough PlayStation exclusives either. That's the thing. Like, off the top of my head, the only PlayStation game I can think of that I really, really want to play is Horizon. But it doesn't seem that appealing. Like, I'd be like, okay, if I never play Horizon ever, it doesn't seem like it'd be that big of a deal. I guess the Spider Man games seem pretty cool, but again, not to die for types of things. I think, like, it'd be neat if I got to play the Spider Man games, but it wouldn't be like, oh my gosh, it's so terrible that they're not on the Switch. Like, I'm not trying to say I'm against PlayStation and Xbox, it's just that they really don't seem to have something that I can get. They don't seem to have any exclusives that would make me think, oh, I need to get this over just having a Switch and Switch 2. Hello, Archer Boy 777. Welcome in. I do think Astrobot looks cool. You're right. I completely forgot about that. Yes, I do think Astrobot would be cool, but not worth buying a PlayStation for. I think I've been told by people that really like the Super Mario Galaxy games that it's basically just Super Mario Galaxy 3, but it's like, why not just play the Super Mario Galaxy games then? But if they keep having exclusives along that vein, then maybe I'd think about it. But as it is, most of the stuff that I've seen on PlayStation and Xbox is like shooters or horror or gore or stuff that I'm just generally not interested in. But welcome in, Archer. Is it Archer or Arthur? I want to make sure I'm not mixing you up with the TV show. How are you doing? And you got anything you're excited about or any good news lately? In case you didn't hear me earlier, life is going very good right now for me. Um, I'm excited for the new Tomodachi Life, reasonably excited. I do typically need more stories in my games, but the novelty of being able to have characters from my novels all interacting with each other is something I'm very excited about. And then I'm just hoping that there's some weird and wacky scenarios like in the first game where they said, all hail the virtual boy. That'll be my skit if it ends up on my best games of 2026, which at this point, I only have like one game on my best games list. You're buying it tonight? Oh, okay. Well, I hope it ends up being worth the purchase. For me personally, um, that game is very much a rental at this point. I have said that if it ends up being cool enough, I might buy it, but only at a discount. Because $60, like, to me, what I consider to be like the definitive, this is a $60 game, is Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Any game that is less in terms of like content rich than that game, I would say is maybe more like $50 or $40. But there are so many Switch and Switch 2 games that are priced at $70 or more that have like half the content of Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Like let's pull up some statistics here. We've got like 111 stages, and most of them are good. Over 1,068 songs. There's a lot of quantity there. Most excited for your trip? Gonna visit your girlfriend? Oh, very, very nice. Long distance relationship? Okay. You know, I know long distance relationships can work if you do it correctly. So I wish the best for you guys. That's very, very cool. I personally don't think I could ever do a long distance relationship. I'm just way too much of the type of person that like, yes, I have really good friends that I am long distance with, but I don't think I could sustain a romantic relationship long distance. It just seems like there's too many things that could go wrong, and I'm the type of person that I really like this idea of being able to see the person and realize that they're real. Like, there's just something so special every time I see Esabelle in person. Not that we're romantic by any means, but it just seems like we have better hangouts when we're in person than over the phone. Oh, good. I'm glad she's able to move to the US. That's very, very nice. Yeah, Esabelle lives pretty close to me now, too. So there was one moment on the trip where I just saw her, where I said, like, that I was a bit scared of the future and how that would affect our friendship after she gets married. And she just said, "Oh, Paul, my fiance is a super social guy. And so he's encouraging me to keep being friends with other people." And so she said, I highly doubt that you and I will be separated for too long. So that like alleviated quite a lot of my fears when she said that. In fact, he even jokes around that I'm her YouTube boyfriend because so many people thought that Esabelle and I were a couple for the longest time. And I can see why people would think that. But I also think that people don't grasp the concept of platonic chemistry. I mean, just look at most TV couples. Like you get like Dick Van Dyke and Mary Tyler Moore. Like those guys have impeccable chemistry. But yet I don't think anyone would ever suspect that they loved each other romantically in real life. I'm not with Esabelle? What? Oh my goodness. I never would have expected that. No, no. Like I said, I'm not into long distance relationships. She and I are two very different religions and clash quite a bit on serious issues. Plus, I don't really like weddings, and she strikes me as the type of girl that wants a more involved wedding, and me, I'd be looking at like the Catholic Church's bare minimum requirements, and I'd be like wanting to save money and be like, oh, don't do all that stupid stuff that weddings do. Just get the absolute bare minimum, like wear a t-shirt and jeans and call it a day. And I just feel like she likes aesthetics way more, so that wouldn't work. And then I also just at this point in my life, I don't really want kids, and she does. So I don't think that would work out. There's just a lot of stuff against us. Like, she's a great friend, and I think at this point she's one of my absolute best friends, but very much not the kind of girl I'd want to marry. Again, platonic chemistry. You see that on TV all the time. All the time. And people don't necessarily assume that they're couples. So I think she and I are just like Dick Van Dyke and Mary Tyler Moore. When you love a woman, a wedding is more meaning than a bare minimum. Yeah, maybe I just don't love a woman enough then. Because I just don't have any desire for more than just like again, the absolute minimum of what the Catholic Church wants. And I think I'm a bit too stubborn to want to compromise at this point. And I also just don't think long-term sustainability would be a good idea for the two of us. Like, I don't think she'd be happy with my current financial situation. And I don't think, yeah, there's just too much stuff that works against us. Again, great friend, a girl I love hanging out with, but not a girl I'd want to spend the rest of my life with. Plus, I also think we have too many miscommunications. And like, when you're friends, you can, like, talk it out and be better the next day. But when you're in a relationship, that can like severely impact how you spend the rest of your life. Because then you're thinking, if this guy is going to be this hard to communicate with now, I'm spending the rest of my life with him. Whereas, like, if you're only talking to someone once a month on the phone, it's like, okay, it's a little miscommunication. We can work it out. Like, it's not like I'm talking to this guy all the time. It's not like I'm smelling this guy's breath and this person is ruining the shower. I once got a comment on a YouTube video that really helped me to put into perspective the difference between how I see romance and how most people do. And I said, hormones don't pay the bills. And she was really shocked by that because she said, I never would have thought that this need for connection and companionship would need a practical element to it. And I think maybe my problem is that I think too much about the practicality, and maybe I don't think enough about like the connections and the chemistry and the feeling of romance. Obviously, I've been in a relationship before. You all know that, or at least I think you do. If you haven't, where have you been? But while the lovey-dovey stuff was cool, the the arguments were not. And there's a part of me that obviously I know that the girl I dated had problems. But what's to say that all of it was problems? Maybe some of it is just the inherent nature of when you're with a person all the time, you're generally going to get tired of them after a while. And so maybe you'd phrase things in such a way that you'd phrase more diplomatically when you're just talking to someone like once a month. Like, I'm the type of person that I don't like conflict. I don't like arguing with people. I don't even like raising my voice. I have not actually yelled at someone since 2017. I've certainly gotten mad at people since then, but it's usually like a very quiet anger if I do get mad. I've gotten close to being mad at a couple of people in my recent comment section, though. Took a lot for me to be like, okay, speak plain English, will ya? But at this point, I honestly don't think I'm going to end up being married. I might. Who knows? The future could change. Gonna go visit her for 7 days. Your union? Oh, union worker. Okay, so you have days and vacation day. Oh, okay, gotcha. Hey, you know what? I think 7 days is great. Like you get a good feel of the mundane when you're visiting someone for that long. Because I remember the previous time that Esabelle and her sister came to visit me, it did feel like we got a good glimpse of what it was like in the mundane, like what she's like when she first wakes up in the morning. She and I are almost complete opposites in the morning. No, we didn't sleep together. I was on a completely different floor than her. But like I would be like, "Yo, how are you doing?" And she's like, "Paul, I just woke up. I still have to adjust." So it, you don't think about the little things when you're in a relationship because the euphoria tends to take over. So, there's that symbol again. What the heck is going on here? So, I see that next to that symbol, you put a laughing face. So, you and her have FaceTimed multiple times? Yeah, no, I think that's very, very cool. But FaceTime at the same time, you still don't get to hug the person and you don't get. I guess you would get less euphoria from FaceTiming because, like, um, any form of touch exhibits oxytocin. But again, FaceTiming is usually this very curated type of thing. Like you kind of have to coordinate it. Whereas you don't always coordinate the day-to-day mundane stuff. You don't always coordinate like the person's stance when they're hugging you or food preferences. Like what are we going to do when we're both hungry? We're going to have to compromise on like my food preferences versus hers. I'm a very traditional type of guy. Like, I tend to stick to like the same old restaurants over and over again. Most of my female friends are more experimental. So if hypothetically Esabelle and I were a thing, we would have had to have discussed like, okay, what are we going to do for dinner? Are you going to be okay with marrying a guy who is a very samey type of person who, if he had his way, he'd just have Burger King all the time? Well, okay. I wouldn't have Burger King all the time. That would be very, very unhealthy. But that would probably be like where we'd go for like special dinner occasions. And she'd probably be like, Paul, you're so unromantic. Why don't you take me to a fancy restaurant? And then I'd probably be the type of person that I wouldn't want to get her flowers all the time because I'd consider that a waste of money. Because what are you supposed to do with flowers? Eat them? BK? What's BK? Oh, Burger King. Gotcha. Hey, I never claimed to be romantic. My ex girlfriend thought I was romantic because she and I thought very similarly. When St. Valentine's Day approached, my dad was harping on me about the fact that I didn't get her flowers. And I just said, oh, that's just such a stupid tradition. Who cares? She got me a golden flower because she decided to buck the tradition. And I said, oh, heck yeah. This is a great subversion of what is supposed to be done. I also hate the idea of getting down on one knee and proposing. It's like, why one knee? And why does it always have to be like there's certain Catholic symbolism to a man doing that to a woman, but I would have to look at the catechism to see if that's mandatory. Like the symbolism makes sense, but is it like by penalty of mortal sin if I don't? Because if I didn't, I'd want to propose in a way more creative way. Like, I don't know, maybe I'd like skydive in front of her and then say, will you marry me? Or I'd give her the opportunity to ask, like, does it say in the catechism that it always has to be the man who proposes? I don't know. But if it doesn't, I'd want to give her that option. Or maybe instead of getting down on one knee, I'd jump on a chair and be like twice as tall as I was and like hold the ring down and say, will you marry me? Or instead of having a ring, maybe I'd like, I don't know, have a switch case and say, like, yo, would you want to be around me just as much as a Nintendo Switch would be? You know, I'd want to make it creative. I wouldn't want to be so boring and traditional. I'd want to branch out. And I know I just said I'm so boring when it comes to restaurants, but here's the thing. When it comes to societal traditions, that's where I'm more willing to say, okay, okay, okay. I can't stand all this tradition from other people. But when I'm used to something, then I don't like it when people try to pry me from it. So I like personal, unique traditions, but not stuff that's been going on for so many years that people have forgotten why it exists. So like for example, men holding open the door for women. I think that that's a beautiful gesture. But I don't think there's anything in the catechism says that women can't hold open the door for men. Like um I think the reason why it started out with men holding open the door for women was because back then women had really long dresses and it would be really hard for her to open the door for herself because then she'd have to pull the rest of her dress through the door and it would probably be caught in the door. So the man holding open the door for a woman was a sign of saying, like, I'm going to make sure that you don't have an embarrassing moment that could potentially tear off your dress and make you run around in your undies. Now, women wear shorter dresses or they just flat out wear pants or shorts. And so this necessity for door holding isn't as necessary because they don't dress in such a way that holding open the door for themselves would be necessary. I imagine I imagine the reason why Chad is so quiet right now is because I seem like such a not people have tried to guess where my political alignment is. And the most just stunned. I'm the type of guy that I care more about the catechism than I do anything else. So if the catechism were to say, Paul, everything you just said is completely wrong and you need to go to confession and you do need to get down on one knee and propose to a woman that way, then I would say, okay, you're right. You're right. I'm totally wrong. I'll delete this live stream. But as far as I know, the catechism doesn't say that. If it does, then I will apologize. But until I find out that it says that, why not do things my way? If it's not a mortal sin, if it's not going to keep me from heaven, and if I'm around a quirky woman that is completely cool with my way of doing things, why not? And that's what I love about being Catholic, is that we have this source that came all the way from Jesus himself that can say what is and isn't acceptable. And if there is no definitive stance, then we can make our own rules as long as we keep in mind the other rules that determine not to go too far. But yeah, normally at this point in the chat, I'll either get at least one like or like a lot of people will be talking. So I imagine I just stunned everyone into silence. I think it's because most people think of me as this hardcore traditionalist, and I guess like probably more right wing. But I do have another friend who says that I'm more of a like a moderate with leanings towards conservatism. I personally don't really care about politics all that much, unless if it like contrasts with moral teachings. To me, I'm just like, okay, I'm going to vote for whoever is in favor of babies being alive. Like that's the biggest drawback for me is the respect for human dignity and life. So, yeah, just if that person's a liberal or a conservative, I don't care as long as life is being respected. That's my political view in a nutshell. No, that's okay. No, that's okay. I like to try to predict what people are thinking because I think a lot of YouTubers are too scared to be able to um I think a lot of YouTubers are scared to be able to be candid in front of their audiences because they feel like if they are just like stating it like it is, then that'll lose them views because they're constantly on this guard about like, okay, I need to post more negative videos because negativity sells. I need to do more clickbait because people aren't going to want a thumbnail that's being honest. And in these live streams, I would like to think that I have an opportunity to just be myself. Like, I'm always myself anyway in YouTube videos. But I would say I'm more like 97% of myself. There's a tiny little 3% of me that I would say that maybe I like hide from you guys. Just because, like, in a scripted video, I think it's important that you at least phrase things somewhat diplomatically. But in a live stream, that's what people have stated that they like about my live streams is they like the candidness and they like me being able to say like, yeah, I did get a stupid comment on my videos the other day and I want to talk about how stupid it was. And honestly, I've been getting a lot of subscribers lately. Oh, let me first read Kevin's comment. Don't want me to think that I ignored you. Okay, far conservative. I couldn't have guessed with a name like that. But yeah, I don't know where I line up. I think people would say that I'm far conservative, but I tend to get annoyed by people that are like ultra conservative, where they're like the woman has to be in the house and the man has to be the breadwinner. I'm like, yeah, at one point that was considered the norm, but do you know why it was the norm? Again, it was because the way women dressed, they didn't have the clothes and they didn't have the muscles to be able to do the hard labor that men were supposed to do. Because, nowadays, you can get stuff like office jobs. Obviously, there's nothing that can prevent a woman from doing an office job. But back then, it was like working in the fields and the factories, and women just did not have the strength or the capacity to do that. They didn't have stuff like gyms where women could work out to get that strength. Nowadays, they can. So I would say whoever is more capable, I would say should be the breadwinner. You've seen YouTubers who went political and got backlash and lost followers, and he even wore a dress. Who are you talking about here? Because that certainly wasn't me. I would never want to wear a dress just because I think that's too impractical. Like, um, I get cold on my ears really easily. That's why I have long hair, is to keep my ears from being freezing. And also, just like I've heard horror stories of like women that would show their underwear because the wind would blow their dress. And plus, I just think it's a waste of time. Like, pants are so much easier to walk around in. There's a reason why most girls wear pants instead of dresses nowadays, except at weddings for some reason. But, oh, okay. Yeah, no worries. Um, I don't think I'll ever be political on this channel. Like, obviously, I'll talk about issues that I have troubles with on these live streams. But I don't think I'll ever talk about um like Trump issues or anything like that, cuz personally, I really don't care about all that stuff. Like, people misconstrue both sides as words. So like, even if I were hypothetically to talk about something Trump said, there's there's the possibility that I might be misinterpreting him, because goodness knows that man has no filter. But what's to say that he might have been using hyperbole and we just didn't realize it? And I wouldn't want to even risk this idea that I could be promoting a false narrative. Because there's a Bible verse that says, do not bear false witness against your neighbor. And as someone who barely understands a word of politics, I feel like I'm just not the kind of guy that is in the right position to talk about it. Plus, I just think that makes for a boring channel. Like, maybe your channel's better, maybe this other person is better, but for me personally, I just don't think I have the charisma or the knowledge to be political. I think I'm better suited as the kind of guy that's much more positive, much more upbeat, more like telling stories about amazing things that have happened to me, and video game reviews. I just think I would be an utter snooze fest if I were to talk about politics. Or maybe I wouldn't be. Who knows? But I wouldn't enjoy myself. And a lot of you guys, I think even you flat out have said it, Kevin, is they've said, Paul, you're the type of guy that is just so authentic, and we want you to just be authentic to yourself. And I have gotten a few comments even off of YouTube where people just really like my authenticity. And I am the type of guy that I really value authenticity as well. So I'm hoping that if there ever comes a day where someone recognizes me as a YouTuber, and I'm not talking about Esabelle and Tyria, they met me in person. Ooh, TM Wilson, welcome in. I know your real name, but I don't want to dox you just in case you're not wanting that. But thank you so much for thank you so much for saying that. That really means a lot to me. How have you been doing lately? Any good? Silly me. I know what your good news is. I'm going to leave it up to you if you want to say it here. But I am very happy for you. But I don't think you've been to my live streams in quite a while. So good to see you again. Good to see you again. Very much so. Any other good news besides the obvious that you want to talk about? I don't even know who Zarek is, honestly. But then again, I'm the type of person who doesn't typically keep up with the most popular people. Like, of the YouTubers that I follow regularly, I would probably say Ty the One Up Guy and the Wee Viewer are like tied for like the people that I follow the most. Because I literally have those two set up as like, if they post a video or a short, I get a notification for it. I also tune into Arlo every now and then. I don't typically watch his videos that talk about like rumors and leaks. Like, that's the kind of stuff I can't stand. Because I like facts. I don't want like, oh, it's rumored that Nintendo's doing this. It's like, no. I don't trust a single word that comes out of people's mouths until it comes from Nintendo first. Oh, there is one thing that I can confirm though, and this is not breaking an NDA. Let's see what TM Wilson says. Thanks. Haven't in a while. Oh, you got sick? Oh man, that stinks. Hope you're better now. Well, if you're leaving the country tomorrow, then that should be a sign that you're getting better. But thank you for dropping in and saying hi. I hope your trip goes well, and I hope you'll keep me posted on how that all works out. What was I saying? Oh, yes. So I got a comment on my Century of Anticipation review. I think I said this earlier, but I don't think you guys had shown up yet, so please forgive me if I'm repeating myself. The developer of the game appreciated my review, and then he said he'd send me a review code. Technically, he called it a key, but I think that's the same thing. He said he'd send me a review code for his next game. So I felt super honored by that. I've got another developer that said that he should have a Switch or Switch 2 announcement by the turn of the month. There's this secret game that I've not been able to tell too many people about that it is my number one game that I'm the most excited for. For sure. Oh, good. Good. Thank you so much for being willing to keep me posted. And hey, if you need to leave the stream to get packed, I won't be offended. A trip out of the country requires a lot of preparation, so do what you need to do. Hey, just stopping by means a lot to me, and when we talk, uh, the next time we talk, one on one, I'll tell you the full depth of my gratitude. But I will say, if you decide to come to my live streams again, it's usually from 5 to 7 that I do them. So keep that in the back of your mind if you ever want to come by. Although you guys have been pretty quiet by my usual standards. I don't know. Maybe maybe now that I'm doing them more frequently, maybe people don't want to show up as much. That would be something you guys will have to let me know. Is that a problem for you guys? Is frequency? Or do you like frequency? I have no clue. I'm going to need you guys to let me know. Great to hear about the game review codes. Yes, totally. All right. Well, you have a great rest of your day. And thanks again. That was a blast. But yes, no, I genuinely want to know. Do you guys want me to stream more often, less often? Do you want me to talk about different things or talk about the same things? How do I word this? It took a lot of convincing for me to be able to return to live streaming. But then those people that convinced me to return haven't returned. So I really want to know, was it worth coming back? And if the people that want me to live stream aren't showing up at my live streams, that's going to be a problem. So it seems like the 5 to 7 range is like what you guys want. But if you don't want it, please let me know. And if I ever get a better home situation, not that it's bad, I just have to I have to be mindful of making sure when I can get space to live stream, is what I'm saying. But no, I didn't mean to imply I had a bad home life. I have a very good home life. This basement is very comfortable. This couch is very comfortable. My room, I absolutely love it. Oh, hey, it's Loto. Welcome in. Xenoblade X release week. I did hear that got a Switch 2 edition. I personally won't be getting it just because I'm not good at Xenoblade Chronicles X. I got to Chapter 9 of the Definitive Edition, and I got hopelessly stuck. But it did have a really good movement system. I loved actually running around and exploring the world. I like the voice acting, Matt Mercer and Cassandra Lee Morris are two of my favorites. Tomodachi Life, my rental copy shipped today. So it should be probably within the next 2 days at the earliest and 8 days at the latest. But how are you doing? How are you doing, Lodo? Any good news? Well, obviously that's good news. Anything else going on that you're excited about? Me being married? No, I'm talking about the family that I live with. No, nope, never been married. I got close to being married at one point, but that didn't end up working out. But that's okay. because I've heard horror stories about marriages, and there's a part of me that's just like, I don't want anything to do with all that. Your friend got stuck in the game too. Yeah, that's good that there are those guides, but do I really want to go back and play that game? Not really. It's the kind of game where exploration is the fun part, but the story is just kind of like I went ahead and just binged on all the spoilers. And I said, it's it's eh, it's all right. That it's nowhere near as good as any of the twists in Xenoblade Chronicles 1 or 3. 2, I don't really remember too much of the story. You need a prenup? What's a prenup? But yeah, I agree. Marriage is pretty risky at this point. I would need to really, really, really trust someone. The story reminds you of an old school sci fi show? Yeah, I don't watch too much TV nowadays, so I'm not sure. Prenuptial agreement? I'd have to see if the Catholic Church is okay with that. But I'm the type of guy that I like to be friends first and then date later. And I know that there are some girls out there that do not like that approach, but most of my best friends did that with their husbands and fiancés. So it's definitely possible, but also at this point, I really just do not care. I really don't see the point of being married at this point in my life. I don't see any benefits. I don't desire it. I have good friends, and those friends are like, again, a lot of the people on this channel have mistaken my friends for being my wives. And in my opinion, I just think having that good of chemistry is good enough for me. And I feel like those same friends would probably drive me crazy if I lived with them all the time. But I did want to ask you, Loto, have you gotten a chance to play Tomodachi? Oh wait, no, it comes out tomorrow. That's right. That's right. You haven't been able to play it yet. Yeah, that's the thing. Is I'm a pretty straightforward person. So I think if I was around a girl that was expecting a lot of hinting and hidden messages, I don't think I'd like her very much because I would want to go into the friendship with this idea that I am very straightforward, don't really like abstraction a whole lot, don't really like hinting a whole lot. So I would I would want her to know, like, I don't believe in flirting. I don't believe in hidden messages. Like, just say whether you like someone or not. And if you're the type of person that's friends first, date later, just say it. Like, peop- like playing mind games is not fun. But the Persona 3 cast, I actually beat Persona 3 now that it came to the Switch 2, and I liked it quite a lot. Don't think I'll ever replay it in a hurry. Because, man, that game dragged at times. But it was fun. Um, I really liked managing my time between Tartarus and the main activities. If I had my way, I would have just stayed in Tartarus the whole time. Because I really liked the battle system. I thought the graphics were pretty good. Obviously, it's a Persona game, so the gameplay is definitely more of a priority than the graphics. Um, Girls are rarely direct. Yeah, yeah, I have noticed that. But there are exceptions. I would say that my first girlfriend wasn't direct. It took a lot of hinting for me to realize that she liked me. Um, my second girlfriend, I would say she was kind of half and half. Like, I think I think she thought that her flirting was obvious on that trip that we went on together, but I didn't realize that she was single because she forgot that I wasn't in the van with her. Because we took two different vans to go on that mission trip. And I guess she was just this very clueless type of person that like didn't pay too much attention to reality. And so I think she just assumed that I bilocated and I was like listening in on her conversation when I wasn't. And so she just happened to not mention that she was single. And admittedly, I was thinking the whole time on the trip, like, oh, wow, this girl is being really, really nice to me. That is very cool. Like, for someone with a boyfriend, that's neat that she's being nice. But, I didn't think anything of it because, again, she didn't tell me. She told someone else that she was single. So I guess, like, either I was very dense or she was really oblivious, or both. I've definitely been dense before. Um, there was one point in my life, I forget whether it was before or after my first girlfriend, where you guys are probably going to think I'm stupid for saying this. I literally thought that I had some kind of medical condition that destroyed all of the pheromones in my body. And as a result, it meant that girls were literally incapable of being physically attracted to me because the hormones that created attraction didn't exist. And so I was like, not that I was asexual, but like I was turning every girl that looked into me asexual towards me. That's what I genuinely believed for the longest time. And there's a part of me that thinks that might still be the case, but I don't know. Sure, you can ask on one condition. Don't ask about anything as far as like you can ask about having sex, just don't ask me about your sex life. And also don't mention needles. Those are my two boundaries. But apart from that, sure. Yeah, I can give you your honest opinion. You'd be surprised how many people ask me about sex and I'm just like, "Nope, nope, nope, not going to happen." But if you want to ask about anything else, go for it. Just waiting for your question. That's why I'm pausing. But just in case you guys are worried about my energy levels, I'm doing pretty all right. My ribs hurt a little bit because I still haven't found a comfortable position, but not enough to end the stream. I still have this much water. Hopefully that gives you an indication of my life energy. But I will say that after I hung out with Esabelle, I was pretty wiped out. So I'm hoping that I had a good enough nap today where it didn't show to you guys. What am I going to buy with my gift cards? Good question. Duck Side of the Moon? I got an email from the developers that flat out said we would like it if you would try our game. I did, but it was on Steam and it didn't work. So I finally just said, yeah, I'm going to wait for it to come on Switch. But now it is coming on Switch. So I'm going to buy that. Probably Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave. Um, RZ 2, whenever that comes out. The first RZ came out in 2024, so I imagine it's going to be a while, but definitely RZ 2 because I love the first RZ. It was my number 2 game of 2024. If there's a Zelda game that's like Breath of the Wild, I'll probably buy it. If it's like Echoes of Wisdom, no way. I hated Echoes of Wisdom. Uh, if they ever remake Twilight Princess, that I'll probably buy. Because I love Twilight Princess, but currently the definitive version of it is on the Wii U. So I definitely want another good way to buy it. Okay. So, October, I'm visiting 7 days. She's in India. I know, be careful. Going to a good area, of course, and she's moving to the United States next year. Do you think I'm dumb or making a mistake? She's Catholic too. I don't have enough information to answer that question. I would need to know way more than that. I would need to know, like, Because you say she's Catholic, but I need to know, like, if she's a cafeteria Catholic, if she's a Creaster Catholic, is she a rad trad, or is she like far left? Like, I'd need to know, like, what are your travel arrangements? I would say that in general, I don't think long distance relationships work for most people, but they have worked for some of my friends. And I know a friend of mine that is planning on proposing to a girl that lives in the Philippines and he lives in America. So it's not unheard of. It's just something that you have to be careful of. But yeah, I'm going to have to, but I don't know how much you want to reveal besides that. So I don't want to come across as though I'm prying. Roman Catholic, okay. Her culture is very right. We're planning on going to a hotel and some tourist spots. Okay, okay, very nice. Um, yeah, can't really think of any objections. No, of course I wouldn't want you to say her name. I guess for me, the big thing that I would consider to be a huge red flag is I remember a friend of mine who was interested in a girl that lived very far away. So he had to like go on a trip to go and like spend the night with her. And it turned out, I don't know how he didn't know this ahead of time, but it turned out that she had really short hair. And by short hair, I mean like a boy's cut, like, from here and up. And he was so unattracted to her from that he was like arguing with her on the trip about, like, why won't you grow out your hair like girls are supposed to? And she said, no, I'm not going to grow out my hair just because of your stupid traditional ways. So then he spent the rest of the trip having trouble sleeping because he was like, I just cannot see myself being attracted to a girl with short hair. And I thought to myself, so you spent all that money and all that time to travel to go and meet a girl that you ended up being unattracted to just because of her hair. So I would say that I imagine you're probably not that shallow, but I would also say, like, are you going to consider it to be a huge waste of money if you go all the way to India and you have to deal with all that different culture and, like, like, are you going to like it there? Is it going to be comfortable? And then if it turns out that you're not romantically compatible, are you going to say that that was a waste of money? Because I remember this wasn't a romantic relationship, but I think it's analogous of what I'm trying to get at. I had a friend that asked me to be her missionary partner. And what that meant is that she was doing missionary work, but then I would be supporting her financially. And one of the benefits of me being her missionary partner was that we were required to do video chats. I think it was either once a month or once a week, one of the two. And I had met her before on a mission trip, so I knew her ahead of time. Not much, but I at least knew who she was. And after her time as a missionary was concluded, she proceeded to say, well, now I have a boyfriend and you are getting a girlfriend. And so now we have to like stop talking. And I completely lost it on her because if there's one thing I can't stand, it's disloyalty as a result of marriage. And after I realized that that was what she had in mind for a friendship long term, I felt like I had wasted all that money. Because if I had known that she was only talking to me for that duration and not like going to be friends for life, I wouldn't have given her $1. So now I feel like maybe if I hadn't been naive enough to not ask her that question ahead of time, maybe I wouldn't have run into the financial difficulties that I did and I would still have the amiibos that I have today. Maybe I would have been able to, I don't know, maybe I would have been able to still be hiring Esabelle right now. So I just wasted all that money on something that ended up being a fluke. Very attracted to your girlfriend, and after all the costs, it's not bad. US currency is way stronger than Indian currency. She apologized that some things are not normal for me, and I said it's okay. Open to learn about her culture, dresses very feminine. And that wasn't even a romantic. Oh, thank you for the pity. I appreciate it. That wasn't even a romantic relationship. So imagine how I would feel if I went to go visit a girl that was either out of state or out of country, and then it didn't work out. And then I would feel like all of that money could have gone towards something way better. That's how I feel about my first kiss, actually, is I genuinely feel like, yes, my first kiss was perfect. It was like 3 seconds long, didn't get turned on or anything like that. Um, but then after that, I genuinely felt like my virginity had been violated. And I just said, I am never again going to kiss a girl until it's the wedding day. Because now that it didn't work out between us, I can never unsee and unfeel that sensation. And I can never get back that innocence that I had before her. And had I known that we weren't going to end up being married, I would never have kissed her in the first place. It was only because, I won't say who, but someone was saying, like, Paul, you're not a monk. You got to show some signs of physical attraction, that I gave in. But had it been my way, I wouldn't have kissed her until the marriage day. And I think, even though technically that's not like a definitive doctrine, it does say not to be lusting after your partner. So I personally recommend that people don't kiss their significant others until the wedding day, just because of what it can do to your brain and what it can do to your body. And, like, there's a lot that goes on if you kiss for more than 3 seconds. And I just don't want anyone to have to go through that. I don't want anyone to feel like if they don't end up being with that person, that it feels like all a waste of time. I know another girl who loved this guy so much that she moved in with him and slept with him on regular intervals. And then they ended up not working out. In fact, they were even engaged at one point, and then they broke off the engagement. And then she moved back in with her parents. And so I was thinking, like, how stupid can you get to move in and have sex with someone that you don't end up being married to? Because now you probably feel like you violated a huge part of yourself. And then you can't get that back. Like, your virginity's gone forever, and now there's always going to be this level of awkwardness between the two of you. Oh, I was even more of a savage when I was a teenager. I've actually learned to tone it down quite a bit. But if you ever watch my videos about, like, game key cards and my thoughts on Nintendo, I let people have it if they just buy stuff without thinking of anything. Because I've always been taught, like, mind over heart is an important thing to have. And so, like, yes, obviously emotions are good to have, but you don't want your emotions to overtake reason. But at the same time, you don't want reason to overtake your emotion. Because if you have that, then that's how we get psychopaths in the world. I believe it was G.K. Chesterton that said, a true fool isn't one who is too emotional or too rational. The true fool is one who is too much of either. So you have to be both. And I've always been the type of person that's pretty even keel. But I would definitely say that when I was a teenager, I was way more on the way more on the overly savage side. Like, I'd get, like, obviously I would get emotional, but for very different reasons than everyone else. You'll never buy a game key card? For me, it all depends. I personally don't really care about physical ownership. I gave up on that long ago when I had to sell most of my amiibos and most of my games just to pay the rent. Um, For me, it's, do I like the game enough where I feel like long term I'd want to play it all the time? And if the answer is no, then I rent it. If the answer is yes, then I see, is it worth the price that it's asking for, or should I get it on sale? Trust me, Paul, when you love a woman, that mind versus heart is a tough war. I have felt it. Oh, believe me, boy, did I feel it before. And in that live stream that I ended up deleting, I revealed that I was not exactly a pure angel when I was with my first girlfriend. And I won't get into the details, but I said and did some pretty stupid things because the emotions just completely took over. And I'm hoping that people nowadays can realize the effects that euphoria has on them and hopefully date for longer periods of time so that by the time the euphoria wears off, the mind and the heart are more easily balanced. And so then they can avoid jumping into decisions that they might regret. I guess, like, when I am harsh on people, it's coming from a place of caring. Like, for example, whenever I call out people that'll spend $100 on that Virtual Boy replica, and I say, like, that's so idiotic. You could easily just, you want my honest opinion? I don't know. Like I said, I don't have enough information to make an honest evaluation. I would say the only way I would think you were dumb would be if you take a long trip to India and then you end up going around complaining to everyone that I spent all that money on the plane and all that money on everything that you need to spend. As opposed to, like, say you don't work out. Um, you say, like, well, you know what? I still had fun with that girl. We're still friends. I still saw some good sights and I went to some cool restaurants. Like, if you were able to look at the positive and say that the money was still worth spending, even if you didn't end up together, then I'd say, then no, I wouldn't say you're dumb at all. I actually think it's very smart that you're going to visit her. I think in person interactions are very important to establishing chemistry. Yes, $100 when you can just get the Labo VR kit if you already have it, or get the $20 replica. But again, Virtual Boy games aren't even that good. If I still have my 3DS, there is a homebrew Virtual Boy emulator. Yeah, I don't know enough about emulation to know how to do that. And even if I did, I you're probably going to think I'm stupid for saying this, but I don't care. I'm the type of guy that I get a dopamine rush from playing games through official means. Like, even if I could emulate, I don't want to because I want that dopamine. I want to be able to say, like, hey, you know what? It took Nintendo a very long time to release the original version of Donkey Kong. And instead of cheating and just emulated, I waited for it to come to Nintendo Classics. And that feeling of persevering, I guess it's kind of like why I think it's good to wait until marriage to have sex. You feel like you waited until it was like the definitive time frame when God wanted you to. In fact, there are lots of statistics to talk about, like, people who lost their virginity before marriage are significantly less happy having sex in marriage than couples who waited. I hope they released Jack Boy. Oh yeah, that's right. There was a Shin Megami Tensei game. Honestly, okay, that's a fair point. I would actually really like to play that. The problem, well, first off, let me ask you guys the question so that I don't repeat myself. How many of you guys saw my video about the Virtual Boy? It's called Nintendo Lied About the Virtual Boy and My Thoughts on the Virtual Boy in Labo. That's a really long title. If you haven't seen it, I can reiterate, but if you have seen it, then you probably already know my stance on Virtual Boy games at this point. Long story short, Nintendo made all the same mistakes that they did in the 90s, and they haven't done a single thing to fix it, in my opinion. Okay, let me see if I am understanding that. Saving up for it, not all at once, but if it fails, I can see myself saying, wow, I made a bold move that many wouldn't, and I'm glad I saw the views. What a champ. Now, when you say views, are you talking about like the views of like the scenery in India? Because if that's the case, then yeah, find the good in it. Like that's what I do with my ex is I think about the good memories we have, and I'll still tell people stories about what we did together. If you know where to look, um I even have a video of a birthday present that she gave me, which I won't say just in case. But yeah, no, yeah. So there you go. Yeah. You're making the most out of a potentially bad situation, but if it ends up being a good situation, then it's a win-win. And if it ends up being a bad situation, then it's still a win-lose. A lot of good views online of the Virtual Boy. Are we talking about the same thing? Cause I tried the Virtual Boy with the Labo because I already had it way before the Virtual Boy was announced, and it was an absolute nightmare. I think I played it for like an hour, and I took breaks every 15 minutes, and it got me motion sick. And I very rarely get motion sick, but it was so bad of motion sickness that I genuinely thought I was coming down with something. And to this day, whenever I watch people like testing out that stupid $100 ripoff, I think to myself, like, I remember the sensation of motion sickness. And it reminds me, like, yeah, I'm just going to wait until Nintendo releases it in 2D. Because I don't get why they're forcing you to play it in stereoscopic 3D. I get it. They want to recapture the times in the 90s. But who honestly liked that time in the 90s? That thing was critically and commercially panned. It only sold 770,000 units. And the people that do like the Virtual Boy will tend to have a butt to it. Like, I do know at least one person on YouTube who will defend the Virtual Boy, but even he will have a but to it. Like, he'll say, like, but only this game is good for it, or but the novelty is neat, but he won't like flat out defend it. Virtual Boy is just a novelty. You only play it because it's part of Nintendo history. Yeah, that mindset is what caused me to be burned off by Sticker Star and Amiibo Festival. So for me personally, I will stay far, far away from Nintendo history that is bad. That's why I won't play Metroid Prime Federation Force because one, I don't like shooters. Two, I heard it was a very tone deaf game. There was a time when I was rich enough to be able to afford games um, that I thought, everyone else hated, so it must not be that bad. And boy, did I feel terrible about it. Like Amiibo Festival, Sticker Star, Chibi Robo Ziplish. I played all those games, hated every single one of them. Nowadays, you would never catch me dead doing that kind of stuff. Like I am much more particular about what games I play. And so if I'm given an option to rent Nintendo games in a way that won't make me motion sick like the Virtual Boy did, then at least I'm not spending any extra money. Amiibo Festival was a bore. You just wanted the game to be over? I just got the disc by itself, so I already had more than enough amiibos to play it. But it was like $7 at a local disc replay. And I thought, I got nothing else to lose. Oh boy, did I have a lot to lose. That Amiibo Festival, in my opinion, had to be one of the worst decisions Nintendo ever made. Because you look up why was Amiibo Festival made, they literally say it was because we wanted to make amiibos. The Wii U was already suffering. 2015 was probably its worst year ever. It really could have used an Animal Crossing, and then instead they gave us a terrible spin-off. You're kind of annoyed that the Game Boy Advance is locked behind the booster subscription. Unlike the Nintendo 64 and GameCube, getting GBA games run on the Switch is not hard. It's gotta sell. That's what you gotta realize about Nintendo, is they're banking on people's stupidity for most of their marketing this generation, I've noticed. You got it for free when Target had the buy two get one free for games of lesser or equal value. Okay. Oh, okay, that's probably good. Because Nintendo realizes that enough time has passed that people want to know, why was the Virtual Boy so bad? So they want to see if it's so bad that it's good. So because they realize that nostalgia sells, they feel like it's okay to re-release it now, because people are going to want to see if the critics were being babies about all the motion sickness and the eye strain. And they're also not going to look at all the news articles that talk about like how technically you can play the Virtual Boy in 2D. You just have really small images on your screen, and there's like two of them. So you have to have like a really good prescription just to see what's going on. And then they only offer on their website two options to play the Virtual Boy, while going out of their way to make a news article that says that Labo is not compatible, even though yours truly did play it with Labo. Because I didn't buy either the cardboard model or the Virtual Boy headset. I just said, I already have Labo. It's been lying around for years, so let's try it. And I hated it. And I feel like if Nintendo had said, hey, it's compatible with Labo, it would have driven away sales from their newer products, because they want to pretend that Labo does not exist. I think they even like unregistered the trademark or something like that a long time ago. You get motion sickness when you play the PlayStation VR. I've never played PlayStation VR, but I did play on an Oculus Rift, and I did not get motion sickness from that. So there you go. But that's why you get like people willing to pay $80 for Mario Kart World, is because if Nintendo were honest with their marketing and said like, hey, you can get it for only $50 if you get the Switch 2 bundle, or if they said, hey, just get it from the library or from GameFly, people would just flock to that instead. But because they don't, people think that their only option is to buy it. But then here's the thing, even for the people that are sensible enough to buy secondhand, you get the fear factor that scares people away from it. They look at the terms of agreement for the Switch 2 and how it says that Nintendo can brick your Switch if you play with used games. So then, even if you do convince them to get GameFly, they're like, well, I don't want Nintendo to brick my Switch. So the only way to prevent them from doing that is to get it when it's new. So I have no choice but to pay the $80. And then if you try to say, well, wait for it to go on sale, they'll say, well, that makes me wait too long, and I want to play it right away. So Nintendo is capitalizing on people's fear, and they're capitalizing on their impatience, because the previous mainline Mario Kart was in 2014, technically. But here's my counter argument to all of that. When I rent a game from GameFly that is brand new, they shipped my copy the day before it officially comes out, so therefore no one will have had time to tamper with it. So therefore, with Tomodachi Life, for example, they can't brick my Switch because the game just came out. No one's played it yet. It's a brand new copy that shipped the day before it came out. And if Nintendo does brick my Switch, there's the possibility that I could call Nintendo support and I can say, you know what? I talked to GameFly customer service, and they said that they had to get approval from the publishers in order to put their games on a rental site. So, were you doing false advertising to the customer service representatives? Because if so, that's on you, not on me. So, even then, as much as I have a love-hate relationship with Nintendo, I'm still trying my best to play their games in a way that gives them less support. Because technically, my brother said that, like, even just playing Nintendo games is supporting them, and to a certain extent, I kind of agree with that. But Nintendo being a corporation, and this goes for all corporations too, it's just Nintendo. Nintendo has usually been considered the good guys among the competition. Like, when everyone else was charging for online, Nintendo let the Wii go online for free. And when Nintendo started charging for online with the Switch generation, that's when people said, "Oh my gosh, Nintendo is so evil." And it's like, you never said that when PlayStation and Xbox charged for their subscriptions. It's just because you're so used to Nintendo being consumer friendly in the past that you're ignoring that. No, they weren't innocent in the past either. You just didn't hear about it as much because the internet didn't exist. Nowadays, Nintendo makes the slightest mistake, and you got all these big YouTubers and all these news coverage talking about it. But back during, like, say, the Wii U era, not a lot of people bought the Wii U, so not a lot of people were talking about it. You really had to go out of your way to see its problems. And even then, to this day, you get so many people that adore the Wii U, including me. I love my Wii U. Probably not ever going to play it for the foreseeable future because the Switch is just so much more convenient. But at the same time, like, I feel like the worst thing Nintendo did during the Wii U were twofold: bad marketing and tone deafness. They just did not get what their audiences wanted at the time it was coming out. Sure, Mario Kart 8 was a great game, but was it what the Wii U needed? No, because it did not provide a good excuse for why people couldn't just play Mario Kart Wii instead, because the Wii U was backwards compatible. You could also get Mario Kart 64, Super Mario Kart, and Mario Kart Super Circuit on the Virtual Console. Why couldn't people have just played those? The only thing Mario Kart 8 really offered that the other systems couldn't was the anti-gravity and the HD graphics. But for the average consumer, I don't think that was enough. Again, take another game like Super Mario 3D World. Was it what the Wii U needed? Heck no. It was just a glorified remake of a 3DS game. And it was a 3D game with 3D in the name that let you only run in 8 directions, and it didn't really have any, like, wow factor to make it feel like this is a next generation 3D Mario game. If anything, it felt like, oh, this is just a souped up 3DS game. So I think, in my opinion, the system that Nintendo nailed it on with the marketing was the original Switch, not the Switch 2. Their marketing this generation has been abysmal. The Switch 1 was, in my opinion, the definitive Nintendo is back type of machine. Sure, they made their fair share of mistakes during that generation, but they started out their Switch presentation by showing a Wii U game that was what everyone was hoping for at the time. That was the very first thing they showed off was Breath of the Wild. And what were people saying about Breath of the Wild at that, or what were they saying about Zelda at that time? Zelda is too linear. Skyward Sword is just a bunch of hallways. It's too over tutorialized. And Nintendo did total damage control, and they opened that with their new system by also saying if you have a Wii U, you can still get it. Genius marketing. I had the most fun with Nintendo during the Wii U era. I was already working, so I got a lot of 3DS and Wii U games. Yes, I did play Tokyo Mirage Sessions, both versions of it. I played it on the Wii U and the Switch. I even have a review of both of them, although I don't recommend you watch my review of the Wii U one. I liked both versions. I think they're definitely on the weaker side by Fire Emblem standards because they're like 80% Persona and like 20% Fire Emblem. I would probably say that it's a neat experiment, but it was very much a victim of Very, very, very bad marketing and very bad false advertisement. Because the very first trailer for the game showed off a whole bunch of Shin Megami Tensei and Fire Emblem characters. And the working title of it was Shin Megami Tensei X Fire Emblem. And it got so many people excited because Shin Megami Tensei was this very dark game. Fire Emblem, it delved into dark themes, but it was like both of them were turn-based RPGs. And so they thought, "Oh, this is phenomenal. This could be like the crossover game we were hoping for." The problem was that when that reveal trailer was shown off, they still hadn't even gotten far enough into development to fully realize what they wanted to do with the game. So when it was finally revealed that it was a J-pop game and that Fire Emblem fans were being severely left out and they called it Tokyo Mirage Sessions Sharp FE, what is the average consumer going to be thinking when they see that title? And what on the box art screams either Shin Megami Tensei or Fire Emblem? In my opinion, nothing, as someone who's played both series. As someone who already likes Fire Emblem, well, even then, it actually took me quite a while to get into Tokyo Mirage Sessions. I thought that it was so stupid because I was like, "Ew, I don't want a bunch of J-pop nonsense. That's stupid." But eventually, I saw it on sale for like $30, and I said, "All right, I'll give it a try," and I loved it. I still don't like the J-pop stuff in there. I still wish there was an English dub, and boy, does that game have a very unforgiving save system. But it was my introduction to Persona. And as a result, I got into Persona 5 and Persona 3 very easily because I just took what I learned from Tokyo Mirage Sessions and applied it to those games. Yeah, people were expecting something else from the first trailer we got back in 2014. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Same thing with Professor Layton versus Phoenix Wright. Literally nothing from that reveal trailer ended up in the game. And I think that's why you don't get a whole lot of people defending that game or even know about it to this day. There was also censorship. Yeah, I made a whole video called A Catholic Perspective on Tokyo Mirage Sessions Sharp FE's Censorship. Again, doesn't have any footage in it because I was weird back then, but I said that it was the fact that the censorship was inconsistent that bothered me. Did I play Persona 4? Yes, I did. I played Persona 4 Golden, and it was when it came onto the Switch, and I didn't like it very much. I think I got to I believe it was halfway through the second dungeon before I gave up. It just didn't have a lot of the quality of life features that Persona 5 had, so it felt very dated, very hard to know what I was even leveling up. And the dungeons being randomly generated, that was a real pain in the neck because I generally don't like random battles and I don't like random encounters. And then I looked up what I was missing, and it turned out one of the bosses is a striptease. So I was like, "Whoa, definitely not going to play it now." Well, I can see why you would really like that game, and so I respect you for that. Like, from what I've heard about the story, besides the striptease, it has some really cool twists, especially in the golden version. The problem is it's just so archaic compared to Persona 5 that's why I love Persona 3 on the Switch too. Technically, Persona 3 is also on the Switch 1. When I played Reload, I said, "There's no nudity in the striptease?" Oh, okay. Well, maybe I should try it. Okay, I'll consider it if Persona 4 revival ends up being a thing. Hey, while you're here, is the striptease really that bad? Because honestly, I don't even know what a striptease is, but I'm pretty sure it's like something pornographic in nature. A shadow doing it, no clothes are removed. Is a striptease pornographic though? Because that's what I'm worried about. Is like I don't want to develop a porn addiction just by playing it. And again, I'm not going to go back to that Switch 1 version. I would wait for a Switch 2 like revival version if I were to play it again. But everything else I've heard besides that one boss does sound cool if they would like give it the Persona 3 Reload treatment where they said, "We're going to remake this game as though it was made with the Persona 5 developers, and they ended up fixing pretty much all of my problems with those old games. I actually really like Tartarus quite a lot. Um, I normally don't like randomly generated dungeons, but the fact that you can see all of the enemies, and after you're a high enough level, the enemies will run away from you, definitely made it so that I felt like I was more in control. Whereas I think in Persona 4, there's like really bad lighting, so like the enemies are basically like right on top of you before you see them. That definitely did not help things. But I do like Persona in general. I liked Persona 5 Royal. That was my number 5 game of 2022. Persona 5 Tactica. That was my number 5 game of 2023. Can you see the pattern? Persona 3 Reload was my number 5 game of 2025. Tokyo Mirage Sessions was my number 9 game of 2020. Yeah, I'm a big Persona fan. Just very selective about which ones I like. And then I really liked Joker when he came into Smash. Um, I think that review I did of him did not do it justice because I have learned so much more since then. But I think I did a good enough job of convincing people on the style of Joker. Like, hey, he's a cool character to be, and the music is cool. I think I convinced people enough on that. Yeah, well, if you say that, Lodo, maybe I will try it. Did I like Maruki and Kasumi? Oh, yes. I loved those characters so much. Kasumi was, in my opinion, probably the best addition that they did to Persona 5 Royal. Because I played Royal first, since that's the version that came to the Switch, but I did my homework to see what I was missing. And I was like, oh, wow, they actually put in brand new characters? That is so cool. And Maruki's character arc is just so wonderful. And the fact that he was voiced by Billy Kametz was a bit bittersweet because Royal came out the same year that Billy Kametz passed away, so there was this undertone of fatality while I was playing it. And then Kasumi, she was voiced by Laura Post, who I had previously known for playing Catherine in Fire Emblem Three Houses, and I was like, whoa, this woman's got range. I wish she was more in the game. I wouldn't mind if they took away Yusuke. I would have said, where's Matt Mercer? Because honestly, I think that helped me tolerate Yusuke, is just Matt Mercer is playing him. Um, yeah, it did feel like Kasumi was kind of shoved into the game because, again, she wasn't in the original. And, like, her justification for why she wasn't at the palaces with all the Phantom Thieves did feel a bit flimsy. But at the same time, I liked her supports. I liked her backstory. I liked how it tied into Maruki's motivations. I liked the voice actor. Um, I liked all the new content that came with her. Like, I liked the new palace, and the new semester was cool. All that was very cool. I don't remember much about what happened in the third semester, but what I do remember was just a very, very good message about um, find the joy in what you have, and don't always try to chase after phantoms. Like, I'm the type of person that sometimes gets swallowed up by regrets of like, oh, things could have gone differently if things played out. But since I have now gotten out of depression for exactly 10 years and 1 month, I am the type of guy that tries to promote optimism as much as possible. And I think maybe that's too much of a spoiler, but I think Persona 5 Royal's true ending was a commentary on people that always idealize the what could have beens in life as opposed to being thankful for the here and now. And that's what I loved about the third semester, is just like appreciate the now, stop worrying about things that could have been because you don't know how that would have turned out. Yeah, he made a perfect world, but yet at the same time, it was manufactured joy. It wasn't the characters coming to this realization that that's what they wanted. And that's why I don't know for sure, but I think that's why God allows us to live on this earth instead of just going straight to heaven, is he wants us to come to the understanding of why he's such a good person. He doesn't want to manufacture our joy. He wants us to experience what's great about earth and what's great about Jesus' sacrifice and come to appreciate, like, oh, we didn't earn heaven. Jesus earned it for us. All we did was say yes. So I personally feel like if I was, say, miscarried, I don't think I'd enjoy heaven as much as I will if I just naturally live out my life. Because I can say, yeah, I came to the realization of who God was, and that's why I think heaven will be so phenomenal. Oh, yeah, I can see God in nearly every game I've ever played. The problem is just that I don't know how to make it interesting for a video. People have suggested that I do a Xenoblade Chronicles 3 Catholic review for a long, long, long time. And I just don't think I remember the story enough to do it justice. I have talked about it before in my Life is Strange 2 is the most Catholic game I've ever reviewed video, where I do mention, like, okay, here's what I think about Xenoblade Chronicles 3, and here's why I think Life is Strange 2 is even more Catholic. But you can name just about any game that I've played, and I'll say something Catholic. Like Stanley Parable, for instance. Oh, no, I agree. Like, I don't want to play the original Persona 5. It looks like a tech demo. Stanley Parable talks about the value of free will and how God did not make us slaves to the narrative. He let us choose. And despite us choosing, simply going by a robotic point of view ends up feeling anticlimactic. Like, I think the happiest people in the world are the people that chose to be Christians by their own will rather than being forced to by their parents. And that's why I think it's really cool that at the school where I teach, the DRE is very particular about saying, we want to make sure that when these kids are getting confirmed, that it's their choice, not the parents. Yes, it is a Catholic school. I am the assistant catechist to 4th and 5th graders at my local parish. And the DRE stands for Director of Religious Education. She keeps saying, like, no, the kids are going to make the decision to be confirmed, not the parents. Because the amount of kids that I have seen at my previous parish that acted like they were forced to go on all these trips and all these retreats, it just made me feel sick because I was like, these guys are probably just going to end up ditching the faith anyway because the parents forced them to. But yet, as a result, I get the impression, I could be wrong, but I get the impression that every single kid in my class, or at least most of them, genuinely want to be there and they genuinely want to be Catholic. And that, well, I know for a fact 2 of them do. Because one girl wrote me a Christmas card and she said that I was her favorite Sunday school teacher ever. Another girl came up to me a couple of times and she said, Paul, after I graduate from this class, I still want to come and visit as an assistant. And I said, that's cool by me as long as you don't take my job. But I think there are like child labor laws where, like, I think she'd only be able to come in once in a while so that she's not like being taken advantage. Well, then again, if it's volunteer, I don't know if that applies. Oh, yeah. This girl she really amazes me quite a lot because the 5th graders have a certain set of prayers, and then there's like others for like each grade above them. And she said, Paul, I was wondering if I could do the St. Michael prayer. And I said, well, I don't think that's on your list of prayers. So she went to the DRE and she said, hey, I was wondering if I could pray the St. Michael prayer, even though that's a 6th grade prayer. And the DRE said yes. And so I said, well, okay, if you want to pray the St. Michael prayer, go for it. And she did. She memorized it, even though she was supposed to wait until she was in 6th grade for that. And I just said, like, I really appreciate how you go above and beyond what we ask you to do to, be a good Catholic. And, I see a lot of that in my class. Like, I'll see the kids holding open the doors. Like, there was one time one of the kids said, "Paul, I want to practice the act of contrition with you." So I said, "All right, go for it." And then she said, "Oh, wait, I forgot the lines that um, your curriculum has written out for me. So I want to say a prayer that my family has taught me." And so she said an even more complicated prayer than what was being asked. And I said, "I think you deserve a virtue card for going above and beyond." Now, keep in mind, I'm the assistant. I'm not the one that plans any of this. The DRE is the one that sets out, well, technically, it's the bishops that set out what prayers the kids have to learn. The teacher is the one that says, like, okay, this is the next part of the lesson. Here's what we're going to do next. I just kind of chime in whenever I think I have something to add, or like if the teacher needs to, like, if it needs my help with something. Like, say the kids want to practice their prayers. She might say, like, "Paul, can you take the kids into the hallway?" And then I'll continue teaching the rest of the kids in here. Like, that's been something. Um, I personally vastly, vastly prefer being the assistant. I would never want to be the full on teacher. I've always been more of a, well, there was a brief period where I wanted to be a youth minister, but then I realized I wasn't cut out for all the administrative stuff. So I came to the realization that I'm more of a follower than I am a leader. And I was able to lead a couple of conferences a few years ago. That is one thing I will say that I had the privilege of doing, is the dearie at my previous parish said that I could lead the meeting for the parents and the teenagers to say, like, what to expect. I think she had very minimal involvement in that meeting. I think there were a few logistical stuff that she had to help me with, but like I led everything else. I said, like, "Hey, this is what the conference is about. Parents, this is what you should be planned for. Kids, this is what you should be planned for." The DRE also asked me to write the email that, like, because I had gone to that conference as a teenager, and she said, "Paul, I think that would be a good advertising strategy, is if you write out the emails that are sent out to the teenagers to say, I went as a teenager. So this is why I think you as a teenager would like it." And so I had that unique perspective of being able to say, when I was your age, this is what I liked about the conference. And then a couple of other years, the DRA said, "Hey, Paul, I've got some stuff going on at the church. So I'm going to put you as the adult in charge." And I was okay with that because she handled the administrative stuff. And I just handled saying, like, "Okay, guys, I need you to be at this place at this time. And these are your options for the rest of the conference." And like, I need, so like, I would remind them of the rules and like where we had to go. But like, as far as like getting them to sign up, that was more of what the DRE did than me. But I just felt so honored by that because I did that at least 2 or 3 times. And I just loved this idea that like these teenagers were trusting me enough to literally be like, "I literally need you to tell me literally every option that I have at this conference." Because some of them, I guess they didn't think to look at their booklets. Either that or the leadership team just did a terrible job of advertising the options. But like, for example, we got finished with the Saturday Mass, and the teenagers all crowded around me and they just said, like, "Paul, what can we do for the rest of Saturday night?" And I was like, "Well, let me tell you all the options that you have." So yeah, those conferences were a blast. And I am hoping, very much hoping, that the DRE will give me more opportunities like that now that I've moved here. Um, what was I saying before that? Oh, you guys know how to get me excited. So good on you for getting me to talk about my favorite conferences. As of now, unfortunately, I don't think I'll be able to go to a Catholic conference anytime soon. But it's not completely outside the realm of possibility. It's currently the biggest problem is the adult to kid ratio. Like, say you only have one teenager that's interested in an event, but you have three adults. You don't need three adults just to look after one high schooler. They're mature enough to be able to handle one. But if, say, you have 8 teenagers, then you'd have to be like, okay, maybe we do need a couple more adults, because having one adult handle 8 teenagers is a lot to ask. So at this point, there just hasn't been enough kids interested in the events to really need me to be there. But one of these days it'll happen, because my sister was praying over me. And she said, Paul, I'm getting a message from God that you probably won't have things being exactly the same as at your old house, but he ain't done with you yet. So who knows? I might be able to go to the Catholic Creators Conference. That is one thing that is a very big possibility. Yes, I did. I won't say when I moved, because that might be a bit of personal information, but the hardest thing about moving to this new house was twofold. The first was the walls are very thin, so having private conversations was pretty much out of the question. And then COVID really did a number on the amount of things that I could chaperone. Like, it wasn't until around a year ago that I could even get close to what I used to be able to do. But I do love the parish that I'm at. I don't love going to Mass there. That much I really don't like. But hopefully, we do have a transitional deacon there that is celebrating his first Mass sometime in, I think he said July or June. No, it's the priest. I won't say too much more in case he happens to be watching this, but just not a big fan of the way he says the Mass. It just takes me out of the immersion. And then I also the congregation can be very chatty. Like, I get it. Like, church is supposed to be a time for community. But save it for after the Mass, when people are trying to pray in the presence of Jesus. They might not like all of this chatter about, like, the weather when they're trying to, like, be in this solemn, holy moment. And so that's why I think people forget that there's a reason why the Mass itself is named after the Latin word missa, which means dismissal. They haven't been dismissed yet. So save it for then when you want to chit chat. So yes, if you're trying to, like, pray and be solemn at that parish, definitely not my first choice. But it's literally right there when I'm teaching. So, like, literally right after class, there's a Mass. So, like, after I finish teaching, I just walk across the street from the school to the church and then just have Mass there. So it's way more convenient than going 40 minutes away to the other parish. But then the other parish, the only thing I have trouble with that is that their music is considerably louder, considerably better, but also considerably louder. So at this parish, they have just a piano and a hit or miss choir. But there are two singers there that I really like, but typically they don't show up for every Mass, and even then it's like only Saturday Masses. So whenever they're there, it at least makes somewhat of a difference. But apart from that, yeah, it's a real pain in the neck going there. But maybe one of these days that priest will retire. I certainly don't wish harm on him, but let's just say if he ever retires, I will hope that whatever he does next, he'll be happy and everyone else around him will be happy. Yes, a priest does make all the difference. That is why I went to my other parish for so long, because that priest when he gives homilies, he's really, really powerful. But I'm all about convenience more than I am about most other things. So I typically don't look for the latest and greatest trends. I typically go for whatever's the most practical. Easter was it was a bit of a letdown because my mom got sick, and so as a result, we weren't able to go see extended family. So we might end up having to have like a because my birthday is this Monday, by the way. We might end up having a birthday slash Easter celebration pretty soon. Gifts, I did get an Easter basket. It was very personalized to my tastes because I really love protein and granola bars, and I really love this type of prebiotic soda called Poppies. And my sister got me my favorite flavor because my sister handled the Easter baskets this year. She got me a whole bunch of protein bars that were all like organic food ingredients. She got me a Poppy, which again is prebiotic. What am I doing for my birthday? I have no clue. I'm probably going to have a voice chat with Ty the One Up guy, which, as you all know, is my favorite YouTuber at present. But he hasn't gotten back to me on if he's going to definitively do the Monday of my birthday or the Tuesday. I know he watches these live streams somehow, so if you're watching, Tyler, start getting on that. Do I have a favorite birthday meal? Oh, I would love to have pizza because that's my favorite food. But if I had to pick a second option, I would pick probably Burger King because I really like their cheeseburgers. Their fries are pretty good, and I also really like their Hershey's pies. Happy early birthday! Thank you, Susie, and welcome in. Um, I don't. I think you've shown up for a few live streams in the past, but if you haven't, this is the extent of what you're getting, but a lot of people seem to really like this. So, you got any good news or things that you're excited about? And also, what kind of videos have you liked on my channel besides the memed one? We don't mention that. What other videos do you like on my channel? And I'll try to make more of them if I can. But yeah, if I were to have like the ultimate birthday party, if like I had a genie and the genie said you could wish for your birthday to be perfect, I'd say one, I'd really like to chat with a special friend. It could be you guys, it could be someone from a mission trip, but like just someone besides only family. Like obviously I want to spend time with family, but not just them. I want some pizza. That would be another big thing. If there was like a game or something released on my birthday, that'd be cool. Um I usually like I try to think of my friends as financial needs. So like usually when I ask them for birthday presents, I'll like think of something that's financially viable. So I might say like, "Well, you're a cosplayer, so just dress up as something cool for my birthday and send me a picture." Or I might say like, "Hey, let's just go swimming cuz I used to be afraid of the water." And so I try to go swimming as much as possible to like never have a relapse and to show people like you're talking about someone who used to be terrified just taking a shower and look how far I've come. Like me swimming is meant to also be a testimony to the power of facing your fears. But as far as what I'm doing for my actual birthday, I have no clue. My family has hinted we might do something on the weekends, but we're still we're still seeing if my family is going to get sick or not, and there's a lot of stuff we have to think about. But my life energy is almost done, as you guys can see here. So throw in the big questions. Um, Pretend like I'm at Comic Con and you really just want to ask, like, oh my gosh, Paul, I want to know this and this about you. Because honestly, I do not want to be the only one talking here. Oh, thank you, Lodo. I don't think I'll get lots of video games just because I tend to rent and I also tend to ask for gift cards. But I do currently have $145 worth of eShop money. And I'm probably going to get a lot more because my family, I usually tell my family, like, 75% of the budget, make it go towards gift cards because that's what I want more than anything. Everything else, I've, my family has literally had to convince me to have other stuff on my birthday list besides gift cards. The MBTI interviews I did, very nice. Okay. Glad I could help you figure that out, Susie. Which one did you end up settling on? Because extroverted versus introverted intuition, in my opinion, is the very first thing you should look for when you're figuring out your type. Because extroverted intuition, INFP, okay, they would have extroverted intuition then. Okay, yeah. So if you can determine the type of intuition you have, you narrow it down to just two letters, either an NP or an SJ. And then you just determine if you're concrete or abstract, and then you've narrowed it down even further. And then in the case of the NFs, you just figure out if you're informative versus direct. And then you narrow it down even further. But yeah, INFPs, I tend to really like ENFPs when they're happy with me. When they're mad at me, that can be a struggle. But I've really enjoyed being around the INFPs that like me. They tend to just like they value authenticity quite a lot. So typically, like, I typically believe them when they compliment me because I'm like, oh, that dominant introverted feeling is just gonna say whatever is on their mind. Maybe not as much as an ENFP would, but like what they do choose to say, I can tell that it's coming from a place of genuine authenticity and truthfulness. And then their extroverted intuition makes it so that they usually have a great sense of humor. Where I clash is when they get angry. They tend to treat a lot of stuff that I think is a statement as a personal attack, which makes it so that I'm constantly feeling like, oh, shoot, did I say something to offend you? And then when I talk about it to my other friends, they're like, oh, no, she was just being sensitive. Or he. There can be male INFPs too, but generally speaking, my male INFP friends don't really give me that trouble. Could just be that I just happen to have very sensitive friends. But usually, once we work out our differences, because we have a mutual function stack, it's really easy for me to understand what INFPs are saying. Like, as far as like actually piecing together, like, okay, what is it that you're ultimately trying to get at? That's when I say, okay, I understand it. Whereas, like, when I'm talking with someone like, say, an INFJ, where they have no functions in common, that's when I'm like, okay, what? I'm thoroughly confused by everything you just said. So, the positives of INFPs, they're funny, they're authentic, um, they're really nice to me when they're actually getting along with me, and I can genuinely understand what they're saying. Just they get mad and they turn into, I call them mini ESTJs because they're just like, rah, 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 you're this terrible, horrible, awful person. I'm like, whoa, chill out. I don't even talk like that to my best friend. I wouldn't even talk like that to my worst enemy. But every type is going to have strengths and weaknesses. So I'm sure you could easily point at me and be like, I can list a whole bunch of stuff that annoys me about you, Paul. So we're all works in progress. Hopefully, I didn't blab too much there. You got me on a topic I really like. All right, well, I think I'm going to wrap it up pretty soon. I have just one sip of water left, but authenticity is really important. Oh, good. I'm glad you enjoy my thoughts. It's also possible that maybe the INFPs that I'm around are just. It's possible that they might have other things going on with them that's not typology related. Because, like, I hear from all sorts of people, like, you typically get two extremes when it comes to INFPs. You get the crowd of people that says they're over emotional crybabies. But then you get the other extreme crowd that says technically that's more of what ENFPs do. Because in the dominant, for introverted functions, it's more of what they keep to themselves. So they typically will only like be dramatic if you challenge their authenticity. Whereas ENFPs are going to be over dramatic all the time. So I think from my personal experiences, my one INFP, I don't even know if she's my friend anymore. She hasn't talked to me in over a year. The times that she has gotten mad at me, I've talked to other friends about it, including other feeling types. And every single one of them said, Paul, I think she's got a lot of other problems that are outside of Myers-Briggs. Because I have ENFP friends that I get along with way better. But then I also have INFP friends that I would say I do get along with. I might not talk to them a lot, but like I have one INFP friend, and maybe it's because he's a guy, and maybe that changes dynamics a bit. But every single time he sees me, he always gives me such a big hug that he ends up hurting me because it's such a big hug, and I'm like, whoa, 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 tone it down a bit. I have a fragile body, and he talks really fast too because he like has all these emotions that he wants to share, and I really like how he doesn't seem like the type of guy that fakes anything, and I love hearing his thoughts on everything. And he has like sometimes he might say like, ah, Paul, I don't think you should be thinking like that, but it's never aggressive. So I'm wondering, either I mistyped that other girl or I mistyped him, and he's actually another type that's not INFP, that's just also values authenticity. Because I used to think he was an ENFP, but then he said, no, Paul, I'm very much an introvert and I'm very much a quiet person. But then I discovered the interaction style. So we will see if I still agree with that. If I can say, like, okay, let's see if you're responding or initiating. Let's see if you're affiliative versus pragmatic. And then maybe I was wrong that whole time. Because INFPs are obviously, the function stack. But as far as the interaction styles, they are responding, which means they typically stay on topic. They will like speak in response to what someone else says. They typically prefer one-on-ones, small crowds, usually don't like starting conversations. They are affiliative, which means that they like interdependence, cooperation. They like to think about the group a lot, not necessarily the group's feelings, but what's going to benefit the group as a collective. They tend to like following the rules, unless if it conflicts with their authenticity, then they might break them. But generally speaking, they're going to be rule followers. They are informative, which means that they might be like a bit wordy, a bit vague. They don't like to flat out tell people any kind of conclusion. They like to give options so that other people can find the conclusion for themselves. So it can come across as like saying a whole bunch of like word vomit or not enough words. Like you might ask, how are you doing? And they'll just say, oh, I'm okay. And you're left to figure out, well, what does that mean? Like, are you hurt? Are you saying I'm okay because there's nothing wrong? So then I have to do a whole bunch of guesswork. Whereas a direct person would say like, I am doing great because of this. And then they'd list like everything that's going great in their life. Then they are interest, which means they tend to see everything on an individual basis, including themselves. They say, this is my authenticity and my way of seeing things. And they see others the same way. They say, like, I see you as Paul. I don't see you as a category. And I don't want you to label me in this box. They also tend to like be very win-win oriented. Like when they're talking to someone, they'll try to think like, what can we get out of this? As opposed to just what's going to make things work. And then I think there's one more that they are. Let's see, responding, affiliative. Oh, abstract. There we go. They tend to like stuff that's not detectable with the five senses. So they'll like stuff like the future, theories, um, feelings. By feelings, I mean emotions, not necessarily like sensations, like feeling my arm. Um, Metaphors, anything that is in the conceptual world or stuff that can't be tangibly proven. Does any of that make sense, Susie? Because I bet you hadn't heard any of that. That's some advanced typology that I've been getting into, and it has made for far less confusion, and all of the people that I know of who follow this advanced typology, I don't think a single one of them, actually except for one, has ever mistyped me as anything other than an ISTJ. Because they're like, oh, yeah, I can see why people mistype you as an ISFJ because you're really affiliative. And affiliative people think about the group a lot. So it can come across as extroverted feeling, even though you can scroll through this chat if you want proof. But I was literally just told that I was savage earlier. Definitely makes sense with abstraction. Symbolism, yeah. Yeah. I think INFPs are the most likely to be abstract of all the N types because they have extroverted intuition in the parent, which is usually what they will use to like enforce things to other people. So they'll like say, well, I have this creative idea, so now I need to make a book about it or draw a picture about it or write a song about it. Or they might like be constantly brainstorming out loud. Like they'd go into a discussion and instead of vomiting their feelings like an ENFP would, they might be like, well, let me tell you about this idea that I think might happen. But then they also have introverted intuition in the critic, which means that they might say that other people's goals are like too focused or too unrealistic. But it also means whenever something is in the sixth function, it means that it can sometimes have just as much intensity as if it were in the secondary. So technically, an INFP's function stack could be introverted feeling and then extroverted and introverted intuition both in the secondary. So you might talk like an ENTJ or an ENFJ would on occasion. So if you have two types of intuition that are both in this secondary strength, INFPs are not only going to think about what ifs and possibilities and abstractions, they're also going to think about, like, I have this goal that I want to. Oh, I remember the interaction style I forgot to mention, outcome driven. This might be a hard one to explain, but basically, INFPs like to get some kind of result out of everything that they do, or they want like some degree of like, okay, I get to have the final say in this. Yes, outcome versus process. So like me, you've got this hardcore progression. I think of everything as a series of steps and a journey. So I'm like, okay, well, I make a mistake, I just learn from my mistake. INFPs make a mistake and they get super annoyed because they're like, well, that end product wasn't what I envisioned. So that might lead to them being perfectionists or like they their ESTJ shadow self might come across as a bit controlling. Like they can sometimes come across as lecturers where they're like, you have to be feeling these emotions and you're just this terrible moral person if you don't do this. Like you get me where I'm just like, well, let me make sure I've got enough information and then let me make sure I do this. So there's a lot less of a step-by-step approach for outcome types. But again, from my perspective, it's going to sound negative. I imagine from an outcome type's perspective, they might phrase it as more of like, well, you progression people don't even see the end product. So how do you even know what you're making? In fact, half the time that is exactly what happens to me. When I'm making my end of year videos, I generally get so involved in the steps and the process that by the time I finish the videos, I end up saying, oh, that turned out completely differently than what I had in my head. But then you could apply the opposite approach where outcome types, they think about the outcome so much that they neglect the necessary steps to make it happen. Or like, say they're in a relationship, and if the relationship doesn't work out, they'll have considered it a massive waste of time. Whereas me, if I am in a relationship that doesn't work out, I will say, well, I will have seen that as a learning process. Okay, my next relationship, I'll do better. Or I'll say, like, okay, well, first we have to do this in the relationship and then we have to do that. I'm not necessarily expecting something out of it. Makes a ton of sense with the perfectionism. I thought of it as an inferior TE, immature expectation on outcomes. I've heard mixed descriptions of inferior extroverted thinking. Well, again, it's going to seem balanced coming from my perspective because you're going to be biased towards whichever your interaction styles are. Um, but I will say, for the sake of harmony here, the interaction styles that both ISTJs and INFPs have are they're both responding, they're both affiliative, so both of them really like group ethics and following the rules. Me, possibly even more so because I'm an SJ. Um, I think that's it because we're direct, so we're a lot more likely to just say it like it is, leave no room for interpretation. Um, we are systematic, so we tend to like see everything in categories, and we'll like say like if you fit into this category, then therefore you must be this kind of mindset. Um, and then we're also concrete, so we're going to talk a lot more about the tangible realities. Like I talk about what's practical way more than what's possible. But as far as inferior extroverted thinking, I've heard a lot of different opinions on how that plays out. I've heard one person say it leads to them not wanting to express their thoughts, like they're afraid of thinking out loud and like, oh, I should probably keep my thoughts to myself and not make much of a difference online. Um, which I find a bunch of baloney because it's like, I'm not politically correct on this channel, so please forgive me if I'm offensive, but you talk to like pretty much anyone who's like an extremist on politics. And pretty much all of them are INFPs because they're just like, you dare to cross with my personal identity? You must die. And it's like, yeah, that's extroverted thinking right there because they're just hammering it in like how an ESTJ would. But I've personally seen it as they have a reluctance to do what's effective. And so it leads to them maybe being lazy or them not wanting to do the effective thing because it clashes with what they're feeling in the moment. So they might be like, I am feeling sad. So therefore, I don't want to do the dishes, even though I know that would be productive. Because right now, it's more important that I feel these emotions. Now, for me personally, as an IJ, I have feeling and thinking in the middle. So for me, I tend to have a bit of both no matter what I do. Like, even if it seems like I'm being hardcore logical, there are undertones of emotion to it. And same thing if I'm being emotional. Like, I'll typically talk about the logic behind the emotions. And so, like, sometimes even when I've been at my most upset, I will still be talking about like how stupid I'm being and saying like, well, the tear ducts are just overflowing, and so I think it's more scientifically viable that I cry right now so that I can get the toxins out of my eyes. Like you see how like I'm being emotional and logical at the same time. But then like I'll mention like say I'm talking about like Nintendo games and I'm talking about how stupid people are for um, buying overpriced games. Deep down inside, there's an emotional side of me that says, I'm so sorry that you guys are wasting all that money and you could have used that money for something that makes you happy. So you see how it's all balanced out, but in your type, you have the balance between sensing and intuition that I severely lack. You can like be abstract, but also like relate it to your personal experiences. Whereas like I am all sensing and intuition is like practically non existent unless I'm telling a joke. And when I do use intuition, it's usually like very, very laughable. Like I either get a headache or I go to worst case scenario and it's just an absolute mess. Not wanting to do things. Yeah, yeah. So the inferior function is it's considered both the aspirational function but also the fear. So like deep down inside, I think all INFPs want to be more productive and they want to be more vocal about what's on their mind. They just don't. but they're also afraid of it. They're like, if I speak up, how will people feel about it? Or they might say, like, if I am effective, how is that going to affect me emotionally? But deep down inside, they're just like, you know what? I'm tired of being lazy. I want to get better at it. But usually that's as they get older. So, like, when they're teenagers, you typically will get more of just the extreme introverted feeling coming out where they're just like everything has to be authentic. Everything has to be how I feel about it. Like when I was a kid, um, I was nothing but the familiar. I I would not play Ocarina of Time differently. I had to do it in the exact order that I always did it in. I always had to sit in the exact same chair, had to eat the same food, I had to like have the same silverware. I was like the definition of boring and predictable. And so as I've gotten older, I've realized the benefits of extroverted intuition and how it leads to like me having more creative stuff. Like, the titles of these live streams, for example, are very extroverted intuition driven because instead of just saying, hey, it's another live stream like everyone else would do, I'd say, okay, let's come up with a creative name for it. So for a while, I started calling myself the world's most boring live streamer because I thought, oh, no one else has done this. This is a brand new idea. So I would say extroverted intuition is novelty in ideas. Extroverted sensing is novelty in sensations. So like the SPs will desire stuff like new food or a new roller coaster. Extroverted intuition is more intangible stuff like a new concept or a new way of thinking about things. That's why I tend to laugh more when I'm around NP types than I do when I'm around SPs or NJs. Because what I've noticed about their humor is that since they have extroverted sensing, everything, and I mean everything, is in the moment based. Even when they're thinking about the future, they're using patterns in the moment to say this future will happen if these patterns continue. So NP types are just so out of nowhere with their humor that it cracks me up because I'm like, I never would have saw that coming. And that's why I tend to crack them up because my humor tends to be because my intuition is in the inferior, it tends to be like either self deprecating or like I'll take something I like and connect it to something else. And they'll say, oh, wow, that is a really funny connection. But I will say that ever since I have learned more about the interaction styles and like the different names for the function stacks, like instead of calling the secondary function just the secondary, I started learning it was called the parent. It got me to realize that what I had been thinking were INFP problems were actually ENFP problems. Because I used to think, oh, INFPs, they're the ones that are always whining on Twitter. And they're the ones who are constantly like shouting at people for violating their values. And while technically, yes, they do get pretty upset when people violate their values, they don't go around parading their values a whole lot. Because again, they're introverts. So they don't see the need to do that. ENFPs have introverted feeling in the parent. And when something is in the parent, it's the this is what you're telling everyone. So they're the ones that are posting all these Facebook posts about their moral views and like, oh, this is how I think things should be. Because you got the extroverted thinking that's intermingled. So like even when they're being super emotional, you got a tiny little bit of verifiable fact in there. They can say like, well, based on these statistics, this is what I believe. Or the world would be so much better if my feelings were validated by this method of using extroverted thinking. So, yes, the next time you're worried about people calling you an over emotional crybaby, say, at least I'm not an ENFP. But then again, there's some nuance to that too. Because I've noticed when I'm around ENFPs, because one, their progression, two, they have extroverted thinking in the tertiary, they're way more likely to hear you out and try to like have some kind of logical variable to their reasoning. So they might say things like, hey, Paul, I think it would be a good idea if we waited until tomorrow to have a phone call because it would be more efficient so that I wouldn't be rushing after work. So it's like, oh, okay, that is a lot of logic and emotion balancing there. Love it. There's so many INFP. Yeah. And I will admit on my channel, I've definitely been guilty of falling into that trap. But I think like the only time you ever really see INFPs being crybabies is if you cross their values. And by crossing, I don't just mean disagreeing, where you're flat out saying stuff like, you are stupid for believing that, and you are contributing to the harm of society. Or if you're like trying to put them in like peer pressure situations where, like, say the INFP doesn't want to smoke, and you're like, oh, just try the cigarette, just try it. You're being a baby. Like, stop being a wimp and do what the cool thing is. They'll be like, no, I am standing my ground and I am going to stick to what I feel is right. That's when you typically see the ESTJ side of them come out, because everyone has a shadow of their opposite letters. So for me, my ENFP comes out whenever I'm joking. So like I know how to make people laugh really easily. And so sometimes I've even been mistaken for an ENFP whenever that side of me comes out. But you can tell I'm not actually an ENFP because I'm always doom and gloom about the future and new ideas. Like whenever, like, say, the newest device comes out, like a smartphone, I'll always critique it and say, my old cell phone is so much better, though. Like, why do we have to innovate when what we already have is good? Um, I think I think ENFPs would be excited about technology and they would say, "Oh, Paul, why do you still have that old flip phone? Why don't you innovate more?" And I think that's why a lot of ISTJs and ENFPs don't get along, is because each of their inferiors is the other's hero. I mean, the dominant. So they're constantly criticizing the thing that each other values the most. Whereas I think with INFPs and ISTJs, they really only clash when their values are clashing. But if they're just talking, I think, like, again, it's a love-hate relationship for me personally. Like, when INFPs and I share values, they are some of the nicest and sweetest people I've ever met. Again, they're affiliative. They want the group to be the collective, to be working together. So like my friend Jen, for example, she's an INFP. She loves hosting parties. You'd think that would be more of an extroverted thing to do, but again, the ESTJ shadow side comes out and it's like, okay, definitely not an extrovert. um, but yeah, like she'll try to talk about like what'll make me comfortable, and um, and then she'll sometimes get into abstractions like, oh, Paul, we're just at another season of life, and I'll be like, care to say that in plain English? That's what I used to say, but I've since learned, like, that's just how NFs talk. They can turn anything into a metaphor. And that's what I think is an underrated part of ISFPs, is that they actually use a decent amount of abstraction, but you just don't see them use it all that much. But like I was watching an ISFP having a typing session, and I noticed that even though she was very concrete, like most of the stuff she talked about were things like, she wanted to be a fashion designer and how she loved clothes. At the same time, when she did get abstract, it was phrases that I would never say unless if I was joking or making fun of people. Like she was saying, "Oh, I just love seeing the beauty in humanity." And I'm just like, when I think of the beauty in humanity, I think of like what you look like on the outside. She was thinking of like more abstract beauty, like the goodness of someone. Or another time where she said like, "Oh yeah, I like really having," or like, "My boyfriend is so reliable that I feel like I can lean on him in times of trouble." And I was like, "Oh, that's another abstract topic." Because when I think of the phrase lean on someone, I think of like actually leaning on them. So I was like, "Okay, okay." She's talking about reliability. That's usually a sensor thing to do, but then she's using an abstract phrase to talk about it. So the next time someone ever says, "Oh, you INFPs are so abstract," get them talking about the past or their routines. And you'll be like, "Oh, you guys can be somewhat concrete as well." I'm pretty sure my friend Jen, like, she can reminisce almost as good as I can. And sometimes she will say, like, I will use this routine as a means for doing what I need to do. But anyway, as much as I'm loving this topic, I am out of water and I do really need to go to the bathroom, so I should probably wrap it up here. But Susie, if you ever want to talk about this more, feel free to just drop me a random comment on one of my YouTube videos and say, you asked for it, Paul. So it'll be my own fault. But thank you so much for coming. I'm really glad we had this talk. Let me thank everyone who came here. Thank you, Susie. Thank you, Lodo. Thank you, Kevin, the conservative. Arthur, thank you for you coming. Pretty sure today was a smaller stream, so I think that's it. Oh, and TM Wilson. I actually know TM Wilson in person. I met her even before she came to the stream. So very honored. Yep, that's everyone. All right. Well, you all have a great rest of your day. And until the next time, remember to keep the faith, stay epic, and God bless. Bye.